The application of psychology to legal matters in a court of law. First recognized as a specialization within the field of psychology in 2001. But really, the roots of the subject go back well over 100 years. The first psychologist I want to talk about is Wilhelm Wundt. He was born in Germany in 1832 and in his lifetime wrote approximately 53,000 pages. He is sometimes referred to as the father of psychology. He established the first school for experimental psychology, and he also established the study of volunteerism. For him, apperception, which is what is perceived in the perceptual field, is voluntary, and therefore he created volunteerism. His work was around the time of Kant. At that time, Kant believed psychology could not be studied scientifically, and Wundt was working against these popular ideas. Wundt redefined introspection in that he felt you needed to define it by using both sensation and feelings. He really opened the door to experimental psychology and therefore the future of forensic psychology. He even influenced the work of future psychologists. For example, James McKean Cattell served as his research assistant in 1883, and Hugo Munsterberg served as his research assistant in 1885. He helped advance Wundt's studies in introspection. The next psychologist I want to talk about is Hugo Munsterberg. He was born in Germany in 1863 and studied as a research assistant for Wundt. He did disagree with Wundt's ideas. He did not believe will could be experienced voluntarily and therefore disregarded voluntarism. He went on to develop his own ideas on perception, attentional processes, learning, and memory. He took over the Harvard Psychology Laboratory in 1892 and in 1898 became the chair of the Division of Psychology. In 1914, when World War I began, Munsterberg really found himself caught between the United States and Germany. Being German-born, he was actually suspected of being a spy. Munsterberg worked in many different fields within psychology, such as industrial psychology, clinical psychology, educational psychology, forensic psychology. In 1908, he published On the Witness Stand. This work on eyewitness testimony actually still influences the field of forensic psychology today. He describes a lie detecting machine that records physiological changes in the body, such as respiration and pulse. One of his future students, William Marston, would actually go on to create this polygraph test that was used for the first time in the court case Fry versus United States in 1923. The next psychologist I want to talk about that influenced the field of forensic psychology is James McKean Cattell. He was born in Easton, Pennsylvania in 1860, and as I'd mentioned before, he served as the first research assistant to Wundt. He helped him study reaction times and was the first American to earn a PhD in Germany in experimental psychology under Wundt. He returned to the United States to focus on functionalism at Columbia University, and he was disregarded because of his outspoken views regarding the draft during World War I. He was very much against the draft for the war. Tartakovsky says Cattell's work with eyewitness testimony made the biggest influence in forensic psychology. One example of an experiment he did with 56 college students, he examined the confidence of their response compared to their accuracy of response. He found that some students were confident when they responded, but not necessarily accurate. And he also found other students to not be very confident, but yet be very accurate. So from this, he found eyewitness testimony to be both unreliable and inaccurate. This work influenced the work of future psychologists as well. For example, Alfred Binet repeated some of the work of Cattell by measuring visual acuity and reaction time. Alfred Binet also made an impact in the field of forensic psychology with his work in intelligent testing. He was born in Nice, France in 1857. He first studied hypnotism with Jean Martin Charcot, But when he found hypnotism to be ineffective, he switched his area of interest to intelligence. His parents were separated when he was young, and he was primarily raised by his mother. Although he was independently wealthy at the time of his upbringing, his parents' separation would have been very much against the norms. In 1891, he started working at Sorbonne, the Laboratory for Physiological Psychology. Here, he researched memory, childhood fears, imageless thought, psychophysics, abnormal psychology, craniometry, graphology, and the reliability of eyewitness testimony. In 1903, he published the experimental study of intelligence. This included experiments he had repeated of Cattell's, in addition to a longitudinal study of the intellectual development of his two daughters. In 1905, along with Theodore Simon, they developed the Binet-Simon scale of intelligence, which was the first standardized intelligence test. This work on intelligence testing made most likely the biggest impact to forensic psychology. It also led to future development of the field of psychology. For example, Lewis Terman created the Stanford Binet Intelligence Scale that's used to evaluate new police force candidates. He also influenced William Stern, who created the idea of mental age that contributed to the development of the equation for determining the intelligence quotient, or IQ. This brings us to our final psychologist that I'm going to talk about that influenced the field of forensic psychology, and that is William Stern. He was born in Berlin in 1871 and under Ebbinghaus received his doctorate in 1892. He really focused his studies around the development of his daughters and was very interested in the field of legal psychology. He was influenced by the work on eyewitness testimony that was done by Cattell, and during World War I, he wanted to escape the Nazi regime and fled to the United States. In 1901, he started working with criminologists. One of the experiments that he ran, he staged a heated argument between students in which one student pulled a gun. He found the students in the class made a number of errors when he came back after the incident and asked them to give their eyewitness accounts. And this showed that eyewitness testimony could be unreliable, and he found that after the appearance of the gun, the more errors the students committed in giving their eyewitness account. He also published the first journal in applied psychology, Contributions to the Psychology of Testimony, and this in the future contributed to the introduction of psychologists as expert witnesses in the courtroom. The combined efforts of Wilhelm Wundt, Hugo Munsterberg, James McKean Cattell, Alfred Binet, and William Stern laid the foundation for the future of forensic psychology.